Good evening and welcome back to Judventures. It's a very exciting day today because the Universal UK Project website has had a major update of information on the Universal UK Project. The first thing that I'm excited about is they've stopped referring to it as Universal Great Britain and it is now referred to as Universal UK. Fantastic. Now, I can't go through every bit of information that is on the website because there's a 16-page document. It would take hours to go through all of the in-depth details and information that they've given, but there's some exciting information in there, some nice information to go through. It really is a fascinating read. I do suggest you head on over to the website and take a look for yourself and have a read through, but we just wanted to scrape some of the key information that we found on there and just share it with you guys today, just because we're very, very excited about this and we wanted someone to talk to, and you guys are it. So the first thing they mention is obviously why in the UK. Now, the UK has a lot of Comcast properties that are based within the UK themselves. NBC Universal International and Sky headquarters are both situated in the UK, but also they provide a map which shows that there is this big section of Europe which is just free of Universal properties. There's nothing there. The UK is a growing tourist industry. It's got around 38 million tourists each year and is still growing, and it's a massive bit of untapped potential for somewhere like a world-class theme park. With only having Disneyland Paris, which has been quite stagnant and stale over the last few years, it's a perfect opportunity for Universal to jump in there and get ahead of the game. Then move on to talking a little bit about why Bedford, and we won't go too much into that because obviously Bedford, it's said that around 90% of the population of the UK is within a 3-hour drive of Bedford, but they go into all of the main airport links, all of the main transport links, train links, etc. It's an extremely well connected area and it's ideal for putting a theme park resort in. But not only that, the Bedford area is very, very flat and offers the perfect sort of base in which to put a theme park on. One of the bits of information in here which I did find really nice to hear, and I wouldn't say so much exciting, but it's a great thing to see them doing, is that they want to respect the site's history, and they say that for over 100 years this area was a principal supplier of bricks. You're obviously passing not only through the Bedford area, but what they've bought is the Kempton brickworks, and what they're wanting to do is they're wanting to incorporate that rich history of brickworks into the park. And it does specifically say if they were to proceed with this project, what they'd like to do is they'd like to incorporate some of the bricks that are still there, because there's a huge amount of bricks just left there. They'd like to incorporate it into the actual building site of Universal UK, for some of the attractions, for some of the buildings, food and drink facilities. It's a really, really good thing to do. It's taking some of that local heritage and putting it back into the park rather than trying to just completely bulldoze it. That is a fantastic thing to do, and that is something that I think would win round some of those local folk that might not be that interested in the project and might feel that it is getting rid of quite a bit of that heritage. There's a whole huge section on how this will benefit the local economy. Now, I think some of that is pretty obvious. You've got a theme park resort the size of Universal, with the money and the influence of Universal behind them. It can only be good for the economy, but it's said that it will create around 8,000 new jobs when operational, and that will rise to around 10,000 jobs in 20 years. Now, the fact that they're planning for 20 years of operation is a very, very exciting thing. They're looking long term. They're not just looking at getting an attraction there that they can feed to us straight away. They're looking long term. They're looking a huge amount of distance in the future. When someone's doing that, it can only be a good thing. And they also talk about partnering with lots of local businesses, lots of local institutions. There's learning programs and training programs in there. There's a lot of things that it brings to the local economy and the local people, more than just the theme park resort itself. So I'm no expert in reading planning permissions, plans as such, but they obviously do have what I will pop on screen now, a couple of plans which they do state that obviously this isn't still a certain thing to go ahead. With a document like this, it's a major consideration, but it's not a sure thing. They still haven't finished the feasibility study, they still have to get all through the planning, and so what they've said is that there is no idea of exact layouts, they've no idea of the types of attractions and buildings that will be there, but what they do have an idea of is a generalised layout. And you can see from these two different planning pictures here that we have two slightly different ideas for how it's going to be. Now both will contain a lake zone, and in both the general theme park area will be in the same location. So it looks like in both of the plans, towards the top of the site where I believe the Kempton Brickworks was, that's an area that they're not necessarily going to build on straight away. It will be the smaller area towards the West Gateway zone, initially become the theme park support, hotels, transportation hubs, etc. And the area towards the back, which is the actual larger area, is set at the minute to be a landscaped area, a restoration area, and temporary construction. So I think what a lot of that is they are going to make it look nice, they're going to work on the area, but that looks very much like it's going to be for future development. Get that theme park in first, get it operational, and then they can move forward depending on how successful it is later on. But just knowing that there is such a large area for an expansion is an incredibly exciting prospect. Not only do we get the first theme park that opens there, our first Universal major theme park in the UK, but there are plans in the future to almost double it, if not go over double in size. That's a very, very exciting time for the UK. But the things that it does show on there as well, you can obviously see there's going to be transportation hubs, car parks, there's a rail station, and it looks as though the rail station that is already there, that they're going to build up and make better, they're going to have a transportation hub attached to it. So you're going to be able to arrive on the rail straight into the transportation hub that will take you into the park as well. Very seamless planning, as with all Universal and Disney parks. Those kind of transportation hubs are phenomenal. There's nothing worse, although we all do it in the UK. We park in a car park, we've got a 35-minute walk until we get to the front gate, and then we've got a 35-minute walk back to an attraction which is just on the other side of where you initially parked. Here, with Universal and Disney parks, the transportation and getting around the parks is really, really good, and it's something that looks to be well thought about on these plans as well. Some of the key takeaways here are about what their design process would be should the park go ahead. Now they talk about a beautifully landscaped perimeter. So what it does is when you're looking from the outside of the park, you can just see really nice landscaping. You can't necessarily just see an eyeful of attractions and buildings. And that looks what the plan is to here, to reduce that visual impact of the resort on the surrounding area. They talk about using articulated skylines in the theme park, which enables an extensive open view. They're not like some theme parks which are very closed in, and once you're on the inside of them you can't see anything but theming around you. Universal parks, like over in Universal Florida, are very open. You get to certain points, you can almost see all the way to the back of the park, but that doesn't mean that you're not immersed in the theming when you're in the park. It's just that they only take it up to a certain level, and they do mention certain levels here as well. Now those of us that are fans of Alton Towers, and bear in mind this hasn't got through the planning stages yet either, so we don't know if these are going to be the final plans or the final rules, but currently Universal themselves have said that the maximum height of any building or attraction will be 75 metres. That is 246 foot tall is the maximum height that they will build up to in their plans. Now, I think this is just a general rule from Universal themselves. This isn't in our plan for Universal UK, that's as high as we're going to go. It's more of a, that's what they set themselves as their limit on any park or attraction. But it is good to know there is a slight possibility at 246 foot that Hyperia might not always be the tallest coaster in the UK. I don't think that will necessarily happen. Universal aren't one for using records and tallest or longest, etc. to use as a bit of marketing. Their attractions and rides speak for themselves. So I don't think they'd ever go up to that 246 foot with a coaster. But who knows? The possibility is there. There's some information in there about the technology that they use for noise and light, whereby they use an inwardly facing light direction in order to minimize the impact of the light actually outside of Universal. It's almost like they're using the technology and these techniques with the landscaping and the lighting to try and make Universal essentially invisible to the outside world. The noise impact will be minimal, the light will be minimal, and the views of the buildings, etc. will be minimal. It's a really good thing where you can pass by this park and almost not really know it's there, because they are using these techniques to hide it away, only to then walk through the door and just be purely immersed in that world in there. Like, it's almost like the Epic Universe. You're walking through that portal into a whole other universe. Now, there's also a big section in here on the transportation links as well, and some of the key takeaways from that are the fact that they are going to have construction of a Wixham's railway station, the delivery of a brand new station on the east-west rail line in close proximity to the resort. There's going to be dedicated direct slip roads from the A421 to accommodate around 85% of all road traffic going into Universal. An upgraded Manor Road to tie in with a new railway bridge being delivered by Network Rail to replace the Manor Level road crossing, and improvements and upgrades to the active travel network. They would obviously need to seek consent from local government, because they are not just building their attraction, but they're tying that attraction in to the local infrastructure. They can't just go, right, we've got planning permission for this park, let's dig up that road and create an off-ramp. They need the same level of permissions as the highways would in order to create these new roads and stuff. So they'll have to work closely with the National Highways, Network Rail and the government in order to do this. But the fact that they're not just plonking down a theme park and saying, that's it, come along, visit us, everything else is your government's to deal with. They're coming, they're looking at improving a vast amount of railway links, road links, the whole area. They're just putting so much effort into making the area better. It's almost like 50% of their plan is how they can make Bedford better, and the rest of the plan is how to create the theme park resort. It's a really, really interesting read. There's some great stuff in there. I've probably not even clocked the most interesting things in there, but I just wanted to share what I have seen with you. By all means, go on to the Universal UK website, take a look at all of this information. Let me know in the comments down below if you see anything that I've missed. With that being said, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we shall see you on the next one. Ta-ra!